Good evening and welcome to the August meeting of the Macon County Board of County Commissioners. We're glad you're here. Chairman Tate is out of town and he sends his greetings from somewhere. I don't know where he's at, but he didn't show up. So, but we're glad you're here and thank you for coming this evening. We got a full agenda and we'll move right along with the agenda. So we'll start off with any announcement. Commissioner Higgins?
No.
Commissioner Young?
No, sir.
Derek? Commissioner Shields?
You want to take care of that?
Yeah. Okay. The only announcement I have is the county manager and myself will be leaving tomorrow for Cabarrus County. We have a fairly important meeting down there for county managers and commissioners at the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. We have a lot of things on that agenda too that we'll be involved in, so we'll be giving a report on that when we get back. We will also be submitting in September from this board a resolution to the North Carolina County Commissioners on behalf of Commissioner Higdon concerning the problems that all rural counties are having when it comes to wastewater and septic tanks. So we'll be submitting that in September. We'll be going to Raleigh to do that. And so we look forward to that. Commissioner Higgins putting the final touches on it, and then we'll have the attorney bless it. So we look forward to that. Any other announcements? If not, we're going to stand for a moment of silence. And as we stand, before you stand up, please remember the Josh Orr family. You know, Josh was a firefighter at Clark's Chapel, and Josh unfortunately had an accident while swimming. It was not on a fire call, but it's a loss not only to the community but especially that family. So remember that Orr family as we stand for a moment of silence. Thanks for a moment of silence. I'm going to ask Mike Decker to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll do a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Decker.
Join me in the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We have no public hearing. Do we have a sheet for the sign-up sheet? Who's got that? Okay, we have, looks like we have 5 signed up to speak, and I think I'd be amiss to say if we didn't recognize tonight we have both mayors from my municipalities, Mr. Jack Horton, Mayor Jack Horton of Franklin, and Mayor Pat Taylor from Highlands. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very much. So we're going to start off with public comment. Mr. John DeVille, talking about the new high school. John?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Rowland. 54 years ago this month, I started at first grade at Highlands School. 34 years ago this month, I student taught under Commissioner Shields and Principal Gary Shields at Franklin High School, and I'm in the middle of my 27th year of teaching at Franklin High. I'm a student of Macon County Public Education. 26 years ago, I wrote a 50-page plus paper on what happened to public education in Macon County in the pivotal decades of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and how Macon County went from having 59 schools in the mid-1920s to about a dozen schools. So I'm a product of and a student of the history of Macon County schools. I'm struck by pivotal moments in our county's educational history. And I believe that July 26, 2022 may well go down as one of those pivotal moments, if we can see it through. I'd like to compliment both the Macon County Commissioners and the Macon County Board of Education, County Manager Derek Rowland, Superintendent Dr. Chris Baldwin, and the central office staff, as well as Chairman Jim Breedlove and the entire Board of Education. What I saw in the Fine Arts Building on July 26th was the most impressive culmination of political leadership in the arena of Macon County public education that I have seen in my professional career. And I believe it can go down as one of the most significant moments in the history of Macon County public education, if we can see it through. So what was so impressive about the July 26th presentation? First of all, the two key leadership bodies spoke with one voice. The detailed conservative financial analysis, which was mindful of worst-case scenarios throughout the construction process and the 20 years needed to pay off the note, that was impressive. The overall design of the new campus, including state-of-the-art academic, vocational, and athletic facilities, which should serve us well for decades to come, along with the plan for phased construction, that was impressive. But what moved me the most was the architectural firm's, Mr. Boney's firm, analysis of the existing campus. Anybody can see that the campus is not ADA compliant, that the campus is a safety and security nightmare, that many of the buildings are quite old. But it was the granular analysis of the magnitude of the disrepair and the foundation instability that made it clear to all that the need is immediate. We knew this over 2 decades ago. It was over 20 years ago that I was part of a group that Mr. Shields put together to enhance Franklin High School. And we only achieved one part of that plan, the new English building, in 2001. But the rest of the plan remained unrealized, only to be a blueprint hanging on the wall in the lobby of the school. I don't want this vision to suffer that same fate. There are 2 sets of voices in the community criticizing this plan, and I'd like to address them tonight from this podium. There are some who say that this plan is too small, that it's too insubstantial, that more hearings are needed, that the county needs to wave a magic wand and somehow find the ever-elusive parcel of land and the funds to go bigger. To that crowd, I say, where have you been for the last 20 years? In the past 20 years, there have been 12 times a year with this body, 12 times a year with the school board, and countless other opportunities in public fora to express a vision. In the past 20 years of 500 opportunities, and we haven't heard anything. I urge this body and the county school board to dismiss with prejudice the voices that aren't in the trenches and who haven't been part of the work. And to say that this new school is too puny is to say that the nicest, largest, most modern and comprehensive school in Macon County's history isn't enough. I can find no good reason to listen to that smattering of ill-founded naysaying. And then there are voices who are saying no to any sort of tax increase, whether there's a quarter-cent sales tax increase or a few cents on the millage. The easiest thing to say in American politics is no to taxes. It's an easy applause line, because fundamentally we want to keep our money. Saying no on taxes takes no thought on the part of the speaker nor the listener. It's all a reflexive act. What's harder for both political leaders and taxpayers is to say yes to the tax, because doing so requires outlining the vision and being receptive to that vision. It means explaining the vision. It means demonstrating that the investment in a public good will serve the greatest number of community members well at the lowest possible cost. I believe that the July 26th presentation was an excellent start, and to those who may fall sway to the no taxes argument, I ask you to ask yourself, what is the cost to yourself and to your community if we fail to invest and to invest now? Finally, this was a great line until Coach Shields and Ms. Barnett walked into the room. I don't know how many other people in this room are in contact with our high school students 180 days a year. Obviously, they are. And because Anna and I have got the same amount of time, or she's got actually more time at FHS, we've spent 5,000 days with Franklin High School students. And one of the things, and I know Coach Shields will echo this, that we hear when our kids get back from athletic and academic contests all too often is, how come they have such a nice school and how come we don't? And my answer is always the same, because that state, that county has the political vision and the political will, and we don't. It's not because we're broke, because we're not. And then they nod. My students are grateful for what they have, for what we have, but they remain puzzled as to what Macon County's priorities are. I congratulate the commissioners, the school board, and all parties involved in solving that puzzle, and I hope the community provides the support necessary to see the solution through. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Jim Strauss. Jim's from over at Nantahala, and we're going to talk about a little different subject.
Right, yeah, this is
So Jim, welcome.
Thank you. Be a safety item. I have a map, so I don't know whether I should pass this out.
You got 5 copies?
I have several copies, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not sure exactly. You got what?
We can share.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that everybody? For the whole room. So I live over on Little Choga Road in Topton, and we're looking at a cove that is on I think it's called Little Choga Creek on Nantahala Lake. And we've come up with a safety concern, a safety issue, where this is a narrow, congested cove. We get a lot of traffic. Over time, and I mean over 30, 40 years, obviously the density and traffic and congestion in this cove has grown immensely. And we got a lot of traffic, inexperienced boaters. We have children swimming, we have paddlers, we have kayakers. And our request is for a no-wake zone to slow some of this boat traffic. The cove is narrow, it's about 140 feet wide by 500 feet long. It's a dead-end cove. I know there's a process that has to start with Macon County, and then I think goes to North Carolina Wildlife Commission. And I guess I'm the representative. There are at least 3 communities here talking. We're in Nantahala Ridge, there's Nantahala Harbor, there's a Little Choga Place. And, the biggest issue we have is that boaters coming in, I put on my note here that there are inexperienced boaters, and there are a lot of people that run on the lake, they come have a great time, but they don't necessarily have the skills or the knowledge of what's going on the lake. And as an example, one of the things you see is people pulling a tube behind a boat, and one of the common things you'll see when people are out boating, they may be on a rental boat, but they're out there and they're driving the boat, and this is what they're doing. And they're watching the kids, which is natural, but this cove gets very narrow, and very congested. There's 31 docks out there, there's 2 community docks, and there are other boats on there. And, I put that they're inexperienced boaters, the guy that's driving or person that's driving looking behind them. But even the experienced boaters, the other day, Joe Allen came out and he took a look, because that's where the process starts, to see whether we have the need. And he said, take a few pictures, which I didn't provide. And this is on a Monday morning, school has started, there's a lot less traffic. I go down, I'm snapping a few pictures, and there's a fisherman coming the other way on a private boat. And he's coming pretty slow, and I'm on my boat, and we pass each other. And no sooner does he pass me than he just opens it wide open. And there are kids swimming on the dock there, and, clearly you'd think this person is probably experienced. He owns his own boat. He's out fishing. And there are children present, and we're just trying to head off an eventual incident. And at one point, there was an unsanctioned buoy there, and it slowed people down, but since that's been pulled by the North Carolina Wildlife, it's very much like a highway out there. So we're trying to get this started on the agenda so that we can get a buoy in place. The homeowners would gladly pay for any buoy. We would pay for any signage if that's appropriate. I put the minutes and the degrees of the location of where this would be. And I don't know if anybody here, obviously you live in the county, you know the lake. It's a beautiful lake, we want to keep it that way, but we want to keep it safe for all participants. And we just like to start the ball rolling.
Was Joe I'm sure Joe was able to help you?
Yeah, he came out yesterday morning, and I just showed him the area of where we're looking at. And, I don't want to speak for Joe, but he seemed very supportive. And we also we've been in contact with the Wildlife Association. I believe his name is Sergeant Carpenter, and they're very supportive as well. It's a narrow cove, and I circled kind of the area. It gets tight, so it's just a matter of, again, we want to prevent something before it happens, especially when you have children and people involved.
Well, this board went through pretty much the same thing when it came to jet skis.
Yeah.
On Nantahala and some buoys up there around Lake's End, so we're a little bit familiar with that, and I'm sure Mr. Allen has the procedures and the hoops, multiple hoops that you have to jump through, and then I think this board, it'll come back to this board eventually, after the Department of Natural Resources the Wildlife Commission. Who else, Joe?
That's it, get a
Yeah.
resolution from
Yeah.
you guys, and
Yeah.
it's up to the Wildlife Commission.
My understanding is Macon County has to start the application and move, I guess, to the Wildlife Commission, and then it goes on to, I guess, the state.
When Mr. Allen gets us that information, if he was just there yesterday, we'll have the attorney prepare a resolution, and then we'll give it to the board, and so that may take a little while to do, but we'll have a resolution, and then the board can bring it, and we'll have a vote on it.
Okay, great. Do you need any other information? I mean, I don't know, do we need photos or signatures of people or anything?
And Paul may have a question too. Paul represents that community.
Let's do the resolution. I mean, I guess we need a consensus on it before we.
Well, we let Joe get the information to us
I
first.
think we need to have a public notice that there's going to be, I believe there's a public notice that there's going to be a resolution, maybe even a public hearing here, maybe have to, before we actually sign the resolution, before you guys sign.
You have to have a
the
public
resolution.
hearing.
And does the public notice, is that a county issue, or is that something that the
Yes.
residents would do?
We'll have-
We'll advertise, have a public hearing, so.
Okay.
Before the resolution is finalized, before we vote on it, we have to have a public hearing, so. Have you took it before the Nantahala Community Club?
We have not.
I would recommend that, just to give you a
The
little bit more.
Nantahala Community Club?
The Nantahala Community Club.
I'm not sure who they are.
Jeff,
Yeah, we got one right here.
just, I know.
You see that fellow in the blue shirt?
I was sitting right next to him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know Jeff had said he didn't want to speak for me, but I do go out on Jim's boat with him every day, and it is an extremely narrow code, and there's no way anybody needs to be taking a boat at any speed through there. It's,
Okay.
I agree with 100%, it's slow go through there, or you're gonna hurt somebody.
Well, Mr. Cross, we appreciate you coming, and
Okay.
and just be patient.
Great. Thank you very much.
Don't
Appreciate
move
it.
that fast, if you can believe that.
Well, we're willing to start the ball rolling.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Dylan Castle. Dylan? Welcome.
Good evening, good to see you all here. My comments are in regards to the new projected high school as well. And so there was some information, I didn't speak during the public comment at that meeting because I was just taking it all in. There was a lot of information given out. But there was more information that came out after the public comment, and I thought, man, that would have been great to maybe ask those questions. So, for example, I believe it was Mr. Rowland that mentioned the criteria of what you were looking for, and I think he mentioned a couple of things too that stuck out to me was the number 50 acres, somewhere around that, and then within city limits. So my curiosity was, does it have to be within city limits? Is there like a statute or something? Or is that just a preference?
That's mainly water and sewer and infrastructure, of course.
Okay.
You know, building a building of that capacity, that size, can't go on a well and septic. So, you know, that is a must to have city water and city sewer, which is primarily, of course, confined to the city limits.
Okay.
And thereabouts.
So then, I think you were also talking about other properties were looked at and none of those met that criteria. Is that available to the public to look at what you guys looked at so that we can also see the
It's been 10
decision?
years ago, we did look at a lot of other properties, and
Well,
we
unfortunately-
found out that the grading was going to cost more than almost as much as the building. Every piece we looked at was, of course, you know, we don't have many places with even 30 acres of flat ground.
Sure.
But the grading was just going to be so substantial, and we looked at one on the Georgia Road, we looked at two on the Georgia Road, we looked at the old Franklin Golf Course. And we just couldn't, and that committee at that time, Mr. Superintendent, I know there was Terry Bell, myself, Jim Davis, I forget everybody, Mr. Horton, you might remember, who was on that committee, but yes, we have looked, and this was just a struggle.
Sure, I understand. So you mentioned 10 years ago. Has there been anything more recent than 10 years looking for possibilities?
There's no, they ain't made no more land since then.
Well, I understand, but I'm sure land becomes available within 10 years, right? No, there's no new land available to look
Not
at?
30-acre tract.
Okay. So there isn't any, or they haven't looked since 10 years? That was kind of my
I don't
curiosity.
know of any. and nothing's been brought to our attention. The school board may know some, I do not, or I don't think this board does.
We've looked at the tracks that you've mentioned and others over the last 10 years.
Okay. You'll have to forgive me for not knowing all the knowledge. Of course, 10 years ago, I'd have been 18, so you
You was
mentioned.
Macon County?
I was, yes, sir. You mentioned about, where has everybody been? Well, I'm 28, so that's where I've been for the past 20 years. So I'm trying to learn, and get involved. And a lot of people have moved in over the years, especially in 10 years. So my understanding is that the current lot is around 20 acres, is that correct?
No. It's more than that, though, isn't it?
26.
It's under 30 acres.
Okay. So my curiosity, of course, was if 50 acres was kind of the ideal number, and I understand what you said as far as, well, where's the land? But to me, it seems a logical conundrum you find yourself if you'd prefer 50 acres, but you're settling for 26, almost half. How that even works logically to say, well, this is what we should work with. So, aside from is the only answer we just don't have land, there's just nowhere else to go?
Well, I think there's more factors than that when the committee back, when we first started looking at property.
Okay.
There was many more factors than just that. You have to stick, just like the manager said, it has to have water and sewer. And we cooperate with the town for that because they have all the sewer and all the water. So that has to be, it has to have infrastructure, number one. Number two, when we started looking, what would be the best place and what's going to happen to the old high school?
Sure.
What would happen there if we just abandoned that and went somewhere else?
Right.
What would happen?
Be prime real estate for some housing, for sure, being right in the heart of town and
Yeah,
everything.
but who's going to pay for that?
Well, there's always developers always looking
So
for
we
stuff.
already own the land,
Yeah.
and we can put that land up and some of the buildings, even though we've done some renovation for them, that can be collateral on a new loan. So there was a lot of aspects that we don't have to outlay money for the property. We can use that for collateral. We can use the old school for collateral, because it does have value. And so a lot of those things came to fruition. So I think if you really want more information, you can set an appointment up to the county manager, and he can fill you in, or the superintendent, either one, would be glad to talk to.
Okay, yeah, I would be happy because, people ask and people talk, but very rarely do people come in here and ask questions or, when do you ask, how do you ask, and people work a job, so like to try and set up a meeting, all that can be very difficult. So I come here asking questions, hoping that when I meet people or people that are already asking me questions, because I know I come here, I hopefully have answers besides I don't know, I have to just ask. So that's kind of what brought me here tonight.
We all got telephones, we're all in phone book.
Yeah.
They find us.
Absolutely. A couple other, if I may. One of the comments that was made during the public comment at that meeting in July was that the new number that the future plans are estimating for, this person felt like may not be high enough, and there was definitely other people in the crowd that made it very clear they agreed with that assessment. And I know that you can't please everybody, but it seemed like even the numbers that were being thrown around, there's a good chance that may exceed, the number of students increasing would exceed that before even payoff is possible. Is that an accurate assessment, or do you think that would be an inaccurate assessment?
I will defer that to the superintendent, Mr. Baldwin. I think you'd all done extensive research on how many students' capacity. And
We've looked at how much the school system has grown since 1982. It's roughly 16.6% in that length of time. If you project that forward, that puts you at about 166 more students at Franklin High School over the next 40 years. Now, it's hard to estimate what the growth of Macon County, what the growth of that enrollment in Macon County schools is going to be over the next 40 years. I think Department of Public Instruction has some formula that you can apply to that. So 1,200 students is a pretty good estimate based on what we know. Paul, do you want to speak to how those will
Well,
work?
I think, your question goes to the future. The question goes to how do you expand that building? And my grandfather's an architect, and every set of drawings he did showed where classrooms could be built. And that's what, third generation, that's what we do. And so we always know that it may not happen, but sometimes it may happen. And so we plan for the future. And we plan for exactly what you're saying. But it's just like they don't build an interstate into the, into the woods.
Sure.
And imagine what somebody would say to them if we built this high school to 1,600 to satisfy a small crowd that doesn't think it's big enough. And then you got empty classrooms that you're not utilizing.
Sure.
And I think the criticism there, and so we try to have a balance and use that balanced judgment and use the data that we have to do that, and that's what the school board has done, and that's what we'll do. But we will show where additional classrooms can go, because nobody knows what exactly, I don't have a crystal ball
Sure.
about what's gonna happen, and neither do you.
Right.
20 years from now. I mean, you could have less students, right?
So with that being said, do you feel confident that what you're building now without additions is reasonable to pay off? Because that would be my concern, right? Like if I was going to buy a
Well,
vehicle.
But stop there. You're not building, that's like building a church on Easter Sunday. That's what you're telling me. And what we're doing is we're building a reasonable, based on what we're told and what the facts and figures tell us, is a reasonable thing. And I know you don't believe me because of the way you're looking at me, but I'm just telling you, it is a reasonable number for the growth that it's expected. And whether it'll last 20 years or not, you don't know, I don't know. But
I think we've answered that question. We want to move on.
Could I add 2 examples to that real quick?
Yeah.
In 2008, I was principal at Highlands. We had 120, 140 students. And at that time, we were projected to have over 200 kids at Nanahaven School in the year 2020. We currently have 85 students at Nanahaven. So that projection was inaccurate. Cherokee County, a neighboring county to Macon County, when Representative Corbin was in the House, he was able to work through legislation to have the small schools allotment changed so that Cherokee County would qualify for that small schools allotment. And the requirement at that time was small school system had to have 3,200 students in attendance. Cherokee County at that time had 3,300. They missed the qualification by 100 students. Representative Corbin was able to work with legislators to get that changed so that Cherokee County would qualify. Now, I don't remember exactly when Representative Corbin was elected, but in just a short time, Cherokee County's gone from 3,300 students to 2,800 students. And it's hard to make those projections. I think that a 250 student increase, 200 student increase over the next 40 years is probably pretty accurate for Franklin High School based on what we know today.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
And I see your concern, Mr. Castle. I've sat through hours, weeks of meetings, and I just want to add a couple insights that haven't been brought up yet, or pieces of information. So one piece of property in particular on the Georgia Road, the old Hastings property, okay, you'd have to build ramps and go through DOT studies and a lot of traffic counts. If we were to buy other sites that haven't been developed, you also run into archaeological studies and artifact studies. The site that we currently own and we currently use, right now we're set up for the traffic count. We're set up, we don't have to go through the archaeological studies, and we already own the land. So to agree with Mr. Beal, we don't have to spend $5, $6, $10 million in an upfront cost, nor do we have to move 200,000 cubic yards of dirt. We probably will have to move 100,000, 50,000, I don't know, Paul, but hopefully we can adjust that to where we save 10, 15, 20 million and reinvest that back into, a brick and mortar.
Okay.
I agree, there's not a perfect site. It's a tough sell.
Okay. Like I said, I don't want to, my questions to seem
Any
like.
more questions?
I have one, is that okay if I just ask one?
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to move on.
And it's not regarding actually, well, it sort of ties in. So one of the things that stood out in the meeting was, you mentioned, the analogy was brought up about Harvard and some of these Ivy League schools having hundreds of years old buildings. And you mentioned, well, they have millions of dollars to spend on renovations and maintenance and stuff like that we don't have access to. So, and I can understand that. So my question is, obviously maintenance being a need to be addressed, are there plans in place as far as having better maintenance processes with the new building or anything like that. And the reason I bring that up specifically is because this past weekend, we were at South Macon doing some things around the property there as just a volunteer group. And I love the volunteer, it's no problem to me. But some of the things we saw while we were there, it struck me, well, I would assume that there is a maintenance crew or somebody somewhere has a job doing this kind of thing. So what brought it to this level? And so that's kind of my curiosity as far as when you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money, are we going to revisit the same thing in 20 years where we're like, well, maintenance would have helped save this a little bit? So have those discussions happened, and what would be some of the information as far as that?
Well, I have to sort of defend the school maintenance system. They have a tremendous.
And I'm not trying to attack them, of course.
Well, they have a tremendous job on a small budget, as the superintendent can attest, and I don't know exactly what you're talking about at South Macon. I don't know if it was exterior, interior, landscaping. I don't know what the problem was,
Did
but
you report those issues to the principal?
No, we just try to address them, you know.
I would, if you go to the principal, I think he'll notify Dr. Baldwin, and that'll be checked out.
Okay. Well, as far as for future plans with the new school, of those, is there, like, you mentioned budget, so is that something as far as increasing maintenance budget or something?
It'll be much easier, be a lot less maintenance on a new building than it will on the 50-year-old Franklin High School now. We know that for a fact. We know what the superintendent can tell you how much we're spending on maintenance now. And we've done some improvements over the past 16 years, I know. And so it has to be better. You know, it's like a new house compared to a 60-year-old. The maintenance is maintenance, you still got to do it. And so we look forward to a place and time we don't have to, that a lot of things that the maintenance will be a whole lot less at the new school. We found that to be true at MBI and at East Franklin as far as that goes. So when we renovated East Franklin and Highlands, so we found those maintenance issues to be a lot less. So we're hopeful that the same thing, and we know it will, at Franklin High School.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Mayor Patrick Taylor, representing the Municipality of Highlands. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Bill. It's always an honor to come before this board and address you. I've attended 2 meetings now concerning the new high school, and I was there at the July 26th rollout meeting. And I just want to take just this moment to say that I support the construction of a new high school. I know that it's going to be a challenge to finance the building and building of it, but I know we've got the commitment and the creativity in this county to make sure that we provide for the education of our young people. It will be an investment in their future, but it will also be an investment in all of our futures. Whether we live in Highlands, Nantahala, or here in Franklin, it will pay dividends in the years to come. So I just want to, at this point, publicly endorse the commitment of building a new high school for.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it very much. Next, we have Tom Oswald. Tom? Tom is from over at beautiful Nantahala. We sat and talked in the rain Monday night.
You sure did. Had a scenic drive over. And
Had a scenic drive over and scenic drive back. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. I'm also the president of the Nantahala Community Club. And I was made aware of the quarter-cent sales tax. And I was reading the article in the Macon County News, and the title was Board Discusses Referendum to Increase Sales Tax. I support the Macon County education system, the school board. And it struck me as strange the way this is worded. Now, if you go down 9 paragraphs in the article, it says sales tax is often rounded up to 7% already. So we're paying 6 3/4, plus we're kicking in another 1/4% for Raleigh. If that paragraph had come underneath that title of that article, seems to me like everybody had been running for the voting booth to get that money before it went to Raleigh. Now, I'm obviously a day late and a dollar short because this article came out in February. But it just struck me as very strange how it was worded when the results, I think, would be embraced by everybody in Macon County.
Ms. Oswald, because of our conversation that you and I and Mr. Shields had, it changed the focus on a lot of Mr. Shields. I think Mr. Shields is going to speak to that here a little bit later on the agenda, just because of our conversation and the confusion thereof. So we appreciate you very much bringing it to our attention. And Mr. Shields, I think, is going to be addressing that shortly.
All right. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Anybody else want to address the board? Anybody else? If not, we're going to move on. Okay, thank you, everybody. Additions to the agenda, Commissioner Higgins.
No, sir.
Mr. Young?
No, sir.
Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
Mr. Shields?
No, sir.
I want to add one thing under reports and presentations, just a real short report. Today, we spent the day in Cherokee at the Rebounding Stronger Summit. A lot of folks were there. The governor, the Rural Center, and we'll give a short, very short report on today's activities there. It was interesting, and we'll give a real short report on that under reports and presentations. Any other additions? Lori?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney?
No, sir.
Adjustments to an approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda, Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
Everybody had a chance to read their agenda, I know, so we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and second, we approve the agenda as presented for the August 9th, 2022 meeting. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we go to old business. Any old business? Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
No old business. Commissioners? None? So under new business, we'd like to welcome our new clerk of court. Ms. Lamb, if you'll come forward. Welcome. This is the first time you've got to address the board as our clerk of court.
Yes,
So
sir.
welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
Thanks.
So you're here tonight to talk about the facilities budget. So you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm here to ask for amendment to the clerk's budget. When I started June the 1st, I didn't know to ask at that time. We are in need of 3 new desks to start off with. I have a new employee starting next month, and we have no desk for her. I also have 2 desks that are 3 separate desks bolted together, and if we slide our hand across it, we get splinters in our hands. Next, I'm asking for new sitting chairs for the public. I need 10 chairs. The chairs we have now are soiled, and the cloth material cannot be cleaned, so when public come in, it's not a very good sight. I also need chairs for my employees. The chairs that we have, that we are sitting in, are over 16 years old. The chairs and the seats are all falling apart. And last, we need 2 shelving units. Right now, we have everything stacked in boxes in a room that you can barely walk in. The total I will need is $5,700. The quote was $5,629, but some of the items were on sale. I would greatly appreciate you considering it, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you.
Okay, any questions for the clerk? Gentlemen, if approved, this would come out of contingency. Lori, you want to remind us? I know we've not.
Yeah. Y'all haven't spent your contingency any this year, so you've got 100,000 in contingency. So like you said, it's 5,700 from contingency.
Pleasure of the board. The clerk is asking for $5,700 to upgrade an office. You have how many employees?
I have 9 right now.
9 employees.
Yes,
It's a
sir.
very busy office.
Yes, sir.
very busy.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to amend the budget to address the $5,700 presented by the Ms. Thun, or Ms. Lamb,
And that money's to come from contingency.
contingency.
Motion been made that we authorize the county manager and our finance director to withdraw $5,700 from the contingency for the clerk of court's office for the purpose of new furnishings. Do we have a second?
Second.
The motion been made and seconded. We authorize $5,700 out of contingency for new furniture at the clerk of court's office. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You have new desks.
Thank you.
New chairs. You want to talk any more about those chairs?
No, sir, but I do have pictures.
You got to know, folks, that these chairs in the clerk of court's office are occupied by some, not all are quality citizens. Is that, would be a fair?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we have Kathy McGaha talking about the Motorola Capital Improvement Plan. Director McGaha, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm here tonight to talk to you about our child dental program that functions in what we call the molar roller unit. So we have been submitting the molar roller unit as our capital improvement plan project for the health department for several years now. The unit is it's about 19 years old. Actually found the original grant to Kate B. Reynolds that we wrote when I was researching for this, where we wrote for the funding, along with some in-kind county contribution to fund that for the first unit. And the picture that you'll see on the left was the day that unit arrived. We were all just, astonished with the unit, because when you walk in that unit, I don't know if any of you have, it just looks like a regular dental office. And it's a actual tractor trailer bed truck that is housing a 3-operatory unit at this point. So and about 15 years into the unit's life, we got some funding for using our Medicaid cost settlement funding and renovated the unit and updated some of the cabinetry and the toilet and several things that were quite old. So the second picture is the picture of the day where it was arriving from being renovated, and it had kind of a facelift that day. So we're really proud of it once again. The team that has been there has pretty much been a consistent team almost the entire life of the unit. The dentist, the assistants, the hygienist. We've had some front staff retire, and now we've got new staff out there, but they've taken such good care of that unit. It's something that I think that the county can be really proud of. So when it came time for this last budget, Derek and I, we always meet and we talk, and Lori, and we talk about our capital improvement projects. And they asked about the molar roller unit and whether or not to bring it forward. And I was asked if I thought we could get a couple more years out of the unit. Well, I must have jinxed that unit when I said, yeah, I think that we can. They take really good care of it. The maintenance, our county maintenance takes really good care of it. And So I thought we could get a couple more years out of it. Well, then things started happening to the unit, and I'm gonna get to that in just a minute. So I want to talk about just a little bit of a history and some of the things some data that we compiled about the unit so that you know. The population that we see with the unit are, of course, Macon County children that are under the age of 19, and typically they have no health insurance or much less dental insurance, or they have Medicaid. So the statistic that I'm showing you is the amount of, the most recent information that I have regarding Macon County children that have no form of health insurance, including dental, and the number of percentage of kids that also are on Medicaid. So that's our population that we're targeting when we provide the services to. When we first started, that very first full year of service, the Motorola had 2,231 visits. And for the 7 years up until 2019, prior to COVID, they were averaging 9,370 visits per year. So they produce a lot of work, and they see a lot of kids. They're doing preventive work as well as restorative work. And we know that the health of the kids and their dental health leads to their overall health of their body.
Kathy, just to clarify, the 9370, is that
That's an
Double
average.
County, triple county, or is that individual county?
It's our Macon County, that's how many visits they see in a year's time.
So it could be the same kid 3 times?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
That's what I was asking.
Yes. If the child comes in and they have, amount of work that they need to come back a couple of times, they may come for more than one visit.
A crown?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
Okay. So, I want to talk also about, so what does that mean for their overall health? The state of North Carolina has an oral health section that would come through and look at, they would screen children. It used to be grades kindergarten and 5th grade. And they'd look at those kids' mouths and determine the amount of decay that we were seeing amongst those kids. They've changed it now. They only do 1 grade and they do 3rd grade. But you can see that in year 01, which was right when the program got started, but before we had the unit, because at one point we were actually using LBJ as our temporary location until we got the unit here. But back in 2001, 5th graders showed that they had 23% of 5th graders had obvious decay. And we've seen over the years and over time that that's improved. And for the 2018, 11.8% of 3rd graders had obvious decay. And that's been kind of like a steady, slow decrease, which is what we definitely want to be seeing. And also, just for those that are interested in the finances of the program itself, the Motorola definitely, they have, since they've existed, paid for themselves, their staff, and their expenses, and contributed some extra to other health department services. So they make in reimbursement, including Medicaid cost settlement, above and beyond what they actually cost them to function as a program. So it's unique for our health department because there's not many programs that we don't have to just supplement, to have. So it's a unique service for us. This slide kind of goes to the history where we were, we started in 2003 with the unit, 2015, it had the renovations. Mike Cope is here with me, and I wanted him here because he's very much involved in the unit and the maintenance of the unit, and he can address some of the problems that we're having with the unit.
Mike, welcome.
Sirs?
Well,
Well,
that's kind of tiny, but.
the main problem that we're having is the setup and the moving of the unit. And the majority of that goes to the controls and the hydraulics that is used to set this up. The controls have quit working. We've contacted the manufacturer, and they gave us an option of sending it to them and them rebuilding it with a 50-50 chance that it would work. It worked one time and then stopped again. The hydraulics leak. The air system underneath sticks. The airbags will not raise the unit. There's just a lot going on underneath that I felt like talking to Kathy about as far as looking at repairing long-term compared to just looking at a new unit. And the reason I suggested we bring it up now is because of the lead time that it would take to get this unit. We're looking at about 2 years from start to finish.
We've also, there's concerns about, so what his recommendation is if we move forward with this unit and move it to the next location at the schools, because right now in the summertime, it's located at Macon Program for Progress. And then in around September, October, I think it's more towards October, we're gonna move back to Macon County Schools. And working with Dr. Baldwin, we've identified Mountain View as the next location because we had to look for a permanent location. When we move it the next time, it's set up and it's staying there. We're not gonna be able to move it again. So we tried to look at a central location. Where can we, so that parents are gonna have to transport their kids, it's back to the going to a dentist appointment rather than being pulled out of class and being served and sent back. So we've got, if you will consider and approve the funding for a new unit, we still got a couple of years that we're gonna have to be in the situation of having a permanent located unit until we get the new one.
What's the inside of the unit like, Mike, structurally?
It's like everything else. It's got some age to it, but there's nothing inside that can't be repaired, with aftermarket stuff. Where I'm running into a problem is we rely, especially a lot on these controls, we rely on technical support from the manufacturer, and because of the age, they just won't even talk to us anymore. And even if we get approval to move it, I still have concerns. This unit weighs 87,000 pounds. And in order to set it up permanent, I'm gonna have to put individuals in under this and crib up, because manufacturers tell me once I release these jacks, they will not come back down. And what I'm talking about is we have 4 stabilizing jacks that actually levels this unit. They bleed off even before the control quit working. So the hydraulics has some major problems. And there's no way, the way this unit is constructed, it's all a solid metal pan with spray foam insulation in it. So you can't really get in there to work on lines, things that's leaking, stuff like that. It really wasn't made to be worked on underneath. But as far as the inside, there's nothing in there that can't be made operational.
No one level with jacks. I mean,
We've been doing that as the hydraulics bleed off. It's everything that a 20-ton jack will do to move one corner. So that's the reason I don't want to go through every month like we have done with moving, setting up. That's the reason I would like you to look at setting up at a permanent location and leaving it there if this is the route you decide to go. And on that note, I might refer to Mr. Unner, I'm not sure about the liability by setting it up in a permanent way, just like you would a mobile home or
We did look into that.
I just don't want any liability to come back to the county or the maintenance department.
So,
Tell these folks who you are.
I'm Melissa Setzer, Finance Officer with Macon County Public Health.
Welcome,
So,
Melissa.
talking with Kim Camp about our insurance and et cetera,
because my concern was, once this unit is set up permanently, since it can't be moved from school to school like we're used to, how would that affect our insurance? So in regards to that, being set up permanently, we are going to have to contract with the school system, stating that we can contract and keep this unit there for this period of time. What I am waiting on, and Kim is in discussion right now with the insurance company, is they are going to be requiring some security measures, which we're not completely sure of what those are at the moment. But we will have to enter into a contract just stating that we can keep that unit. Contract or memorandum of understanding?
They have set a contract for us to stay there.
Consider setting it permanently at the MPP? Because there's the young kids and.
Well, MPP is planning on us to move.
We've asked.
Yes.
We've had that discussion.
Yeah, so that was, our only options were, property that Macon County owned or a school system. The part that I really hate about this whole thing of it not being mobile is, and especially for some that may not know, a lot of these kids, without this unit being mobile, a lot of these kids don't get dental treatment. For instance, right now at MPP, we're pulling approximately 300 children out of class. Because when we move to a school, we block off times to where we can sit and pull these children out of the school without the parents having to bring them. Any of that conflict, they set up all the paperwork prior.
They go directly back
But
to
yeah,
class.
they come directly to us and then go directly back to class. There's a lot of underprivileged children in this county, and without this unit, they're not going to get dental treatment. We've already had, I know Highlands School has already been asking when the unit's going to be back. And it's really hard to say, right now it's not possible. So, and I've had experience with children coming in and out, and it's a great experience. It's great for the children, and like I say, without this unit being mobile, a lot of these children aren't going to get dental, and that's a shame.
So Mike, I have to ask you a few questions about.
You go right ahead, I'll try to answer them.
So,
Mike loves it.
I happen to have a few cylinders like this, and look, it's pretty frequent that we have to repack cylinders, we're changing out valves, hydraulic lines, nothing lasts 20 years.
Right.
Matter of fact, you're lucky to get 5 years out of something. So I do think we have plenty of underprivileged children that need this. I don't disagree with that, but from a cost perspective, the inside you said is good. We have a couple problems with some airbags, which are relatively easy to change out. A couple cylinders that aren't holding pressure, which is pretty typical. Even on a new one, it's probably not going to last 5 years.
Right.
So I guess the question is, if we were to invest 5, 10, 15, 20,000 in the undercarriage, what's the cost of a new? Are we going to spend 700,000? And
The main issue that I'm having is the controls that operates those 4 independent levelers. If it can be retrofitted, now I haven't even looked at that cost. I haven't. But according to the manufacturer, there's nothing we can do as far as controls to control those leveling jacks.
I think it'd be valuable to see cylinders are good.
Yeah,
Controls and
cylinders,
valves,
like I said.
controls and the valves need to be changed out. And, if you had a cost, breakdown of each, I think it'd be valuable.
And the only reason I didn't look at that was what I was getting from the manufacturer compared to the age.
Sure.
Are we going to put $20,000 in something we need to replace next year?
Sure.
That's what I was looking at.
No, that's healthy.
The other part of that is that there's, this unit, being a dental unit, has, they take x-rays. So there's radiology, like the walls are specially protected. And so the leveling is really important for.
I guess that goes back to the point
Yeah.
I'm trying to make. Do we change out the whole molar roller because of a couple cylinders?
Right.
If it's nice, if it needs to be changed out and it's not feasible, we change it out. But if it's just a couple incidentals,
Yeah.
and is the county responsible for the full replacement cost
For
of a new molar roller?
Well, that's something that we wanted to talk to you about, was how we could, at the health department, try to offset some of that money. so that it's not quite the full cost of the unit. We have Medicaid cost settlement money. There's grants that we want to look at writing for. What we're running into, and part of the problem is if we decide to go forward with a new unit, it does take 2 years. And so it used to, the unit that we originally got took 6 months from the time we ordered it to the time we finished. They're looking at 18 to 24 months at this point. So, and there's a payment plan. You know, we would need a deposit down. When they started construction, there was they would need another payment made, and then on delivery, another payment made. And so we're looking at something that's budgeted over a couple of years period rather than just in one fiscal year of the budget. So, it's a long time, so that's why we needed to start this discussion now, so that we could, have some lead time into what we need to do and the grants that we could write and, looking at what we could put back from the Medicaid cost settlement. I know even with COVID money, I'm trying to offset as much county funding as I possibly can and use every dime of COVID money that I can possibly have so that the county money just reverts right back to the county. And so, things like that we're hoping to offset and not have such a drastic one-time expense.
Do you need anything from this board to go ahead and pursue those grants? Is there something that's holding us back?
I don't see a cost nowhere.
I've got another form that has the cost of the equipment and.
But back on the maintenance part, it's like everything else we've got. We keep adding and chasing problems on just about every building we have. The 2 years that I've been here, I hadn't actually been able to do maintenance because we've been focusing on repairs and trying to stop emergencies. And that's the reason we was looking at, replacing, getting one of the problem areas that we have to visit every other week for whatever reason. When these main things started going out, that's why we wanted to look at replacing. We just felt like it would be more cost effective to look at a new, even though it's a large amount of money up front, compared to maintenance or repair over the next 10 or 15 years.
What's the old unit worth, Mike?
Cannot tell you that, no, sir.
But it's worth something.
I'm sure it is,
They
yes.
take trades.
They have given us the option that, so ours are being surplus. They have given us the option of trade. They have given us the option of consignment. So with this one company, so now when it goes out to bid, the others will have, but those are options to go along with that.
I mean, we take every avenue that we can get.
Yeah.
The problem is we need that, upfront commitment in order to even place the order for the unit and get started.
And even if we try to repair this one, I mean, we're looking at winter, which with the fuel leaks, it's a tough situation.
And Mike, you're saying that with your manpower, there's other priorities that you need to
Well,
work
I'm
on.
not going to say that there's things more important, but yes, I mean, we're stretched thin.
Slammed. I know.
When you look at the average age of the county buildings, out of the 50-some buildings, the average age is 25 years old. And that infrastructure is worn out. It really is.
And you heard Mr. Castle talk about South Macon. People forget that that's going on 23 years old. And it seems like yesterday it was brand new. We did put an addition on it, but.
I'm not saying that, this is not something that can't be repaired. I'm just trying to look at it as is it worth it to put these repairs in to a 20-year-old mobile unit compared to looking at one new?
I think I noticed on one slide, the original useful life was 10 years.
Yeah.
With maybe 5 more additional, so 15, and you're at 19, so it's well exceeded its useful life. I have that number, Kathy. Do you want to share that, just the estimate from the one vendor?
How many buildings you got, Mike? Do you know?
Roughly 59. If you put in all of the, nonprofits, things that's not really.
And you got 80, how many employees?
Well, we got roughly 8 general maintenance. Well, I got 30 total, but that's custodial and everything.
You got how many here during the day? You got 2 here.
2 here, or actually 3 here.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just your maintenance crews,
Yeah.
down there,
Yes, sir.
59 buildings.
Yes, sir.
40 buildings.
300 some acres.
Josh,
300 some acres.
Josh, to go back to your question earlier, a May 11th estimate was about $627,000. And that particular vendor said they want 50% down payment, and then 40%, I think, when construction begins, and then the last 10% when they deliver.
But now, Lori, it's not been put out to bid, right?
No, we would have to
No,
bid
we-
it. Yeah, that's just giving you an idea
So
of
let's
the
say
money.
this, you
But yeah,
know,
we would have to put this out to bid because of the cost.
Did you get an answer as to whether it was equipment?
so are you looking for permission tonight to put it out to bid and let's just see where we're at? Is that what we're looking for? To see where the cost is?
We have to have a commitment for money in it before I hate to put something out to bid if the money's not already there.
It's hard to buy something that you don't know what you're buying and what you're paying for.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we could put it out to bid, and then come back with a number, but let's just say the number turns out to be $650,000. You would have to appropriate those funds out of fund balance, and then, I don't know what vendor would get the bid, but this one vendor that Kathy's been talking to, if they were the successful bidder, we would have to pay $325,000 now, out of this current budget. And then,
Kathy, let
probably
me
gonna
ask you
fall in
this.
next year's budget to pay the remaining 40%.
At that meeting today, they kept talking time after time about grants, the rules. The director of the Rural Center was there, Mr. Woody, and we talked about money that, no matter where your zip code is, or what your tier rating is, we should be eligible. I tried to make that argument today, no matter what our tier rating is, that there's some things, and this would qualify. So how optimistic are you on some of these grants, and how much would the best case scenario, what would happen?
I mean, I would say, I've seen most of the grants that we're limited to are around the top about 150,000. That's what we can maximize, what our request
Get
is.
5 of them and you got it made.
Yeah.
What about
mean-
your COVID money and CARES Act?
That's something that I work with Lori quite frequently to try to offset as much as following the rules and with Melissa, following the rules that they lay out for us. We use as much COVID money as we possibly can we've got until December, I think, of 2024.
Kathy, if this board tonight approves going ahead and putting it out to bid, will you have the numbers of what the health department can contribute when you add up, find out about any, I know you can't apply for the grant without this board.
Right.
We have to go first, we know that. So, but can you come up with a number with the other supplement money that you think you can contribute?
I can get a really close estimate. I mean, it's an estimate because there's variables that we have to consider, but.
Mr. Manager, what do you think?
I think that's a good course of action to go ahead and put it out to bid. Like Josh said, you can't, it's hard to commit to something you haven't seen. We could get a solid set of specs and actually see the product we're getting for that amount of money, and then anything the health department can contribute to reduce that overall cost would be a plus. So I think that's a pretty good idea.
But the reason it's called a motor roller, so you can move it from place to place.
Yeah, that was what made it, the strategy that really promoted its success, really, is having
And
it.
necessarily, and you need to say, it's not all underprivileged kids that use the motor roller.
No, there's several.
Not at all.
A lot of people do use that unit.
And,
We have a lot of good staff.
So it's, I don't think there's no disagreement at all that it's a needed, now worse than ever probably. But there's a lot of kids, I don't want the folks in attendance or who's here writing a story about this to think that it's just all underprivileged kids. It is not.
No, it's everything.
It's across the board
It
kids,
is
with
across the
insurance,
board.
non-insurance, Medicaid, whatever.
Yes.
A lot of county employee families use the mower roller. I mean, you know,
Is the technology inside the mower roller, is it up to date, or is it 20-year-old as well?
no, it's older, but it's not that old. I mean, it's, we've managed
change
through
out
the
a
years
few
to
things.
change and update some of the, sensors and, you know, the arms and
But the
equipment and
main
stuff.
units themselves are,
When was your last x-ray test?
we're testing here.
Did it pass?
Yes, yeah, we wouldn't be open if we didn't.
That is the biggie.
And the last question, do you have to sell this on gov deals, or can you sell it somewhere in the private sector?
I don't know the answer to that,
We'd
Josh.
have to, we either do gov deals, or the board can declare it surplus, or do the, like the courthouse option.
Or trade it in?
Well, trade-in, you still have to declare surplus, it gets a little iffy, there's some special rules you have to follow.
Kathy, was you
there.
with Carolina when we bought that? And that money came from,
There was a couple of grants that we received, plus some county funding that we got.
you have to go back and see where those grants, because they might dictate what you can do or what you can't do. Right,
I
Lord?
found all that, Lori, believe it
Well,
or
I'm glad
not.
you found it.
I found all that
19 years old.
grant application, I couldn't believe it.
So what you're asking for tonight is request to put this out. Have you got any specifications, or are you going to depend on the,
I mean, we've got, you know, we can even use what we already have, you know, as our
but it
specifications.
won't be, if it's any bigger than this, you can't take it on the highway.
Right, you have to, I mean, this one, the picture that I'm showing, the major difference for this.
Is this the new one or the old one?
This is the picture of the new one. And the only difference in the newer ones today that are distributed are, they have slides that come out that give a little bit more walkway through the units than walking over the top of each other when you're trying to go to a different room. Because like, as it's set up right now, you've got one person working in one room, you're having to walk through them to go to the next two rooms, where these units, with a little bit of leadway, this is a 3-foot extension, so it gives a little more leadway getting patients in and out of the unit. But they're the same width, the same length, all of that is all the same.
Well, I think another big issue is the liability issues. I just, Mike putting his people crawling under this thing, and Josh can tell you about big equipment and how there's an accident today. Big equipment, and so.
And you can
I
ask
think
Mike.
what we're asking for here is, the board's, is to go ahead and put it out for bid, see what kind of money we're talking about, and see what money Kathy can contribute from the health department, and then we'll know what we're talking about. So with that, we'll entertain a motion to go ahead and authorize the county manager and our finance department, along with the health director, to put out for bid for a new mower roller, and then we'll see where that comes in. And
I'll prepare,
and
well, an
if
estimate of
it's 2
what.
years down the road, if you start now.
I know. Even the bids between 2019 and now, obviously prices have gone
But
up.
whenever Mike Cope says it's unsafe to move, we park it,
Well, I
wherever it
think
is.
the last time they moved it, they ended up with
It was-
the brakes locked up, and, I mean, it was a mess. And
When Mike says it's unsafe
Yeah.
to move wherever it is, that's a good place for it. Wherever it is. Because if it's unsafe for our employees to work on,
Yeah.
that's, it's not,
And
so-
they're having to come out, I call him at least weekly, because they're having to come back out and re-level, and, yeah. it's
So
rough.
Jim, you understand what we're asking for? Josh, does that sound
I'd like
reasonable?
to say, you think it'd be worthwhile to have Tommy Potts look at it? I mean, if he can fix it for $5,000 or $10,000, it still buys 2 years. I'd support that.
I mean, we're gonna need something just to get us through to the new unit.
I do agree, you guys.
I did have Greg Connor look at it. And he kind of had some issues with it, but I know Greg's just a truck, and he don't do the mechanic work. But yes, I would be glad to get in touch with Tom.
Just wonder if he come back with a quote to work on it.
And if there's some way to bypass those controls and either operate them manually or just some way to operate them, that'll get us a few more years, at least until.
At least we'll do it here, I mean.
So anyway, board will entertain a motion to that effect.
Who's best hire off camera?
Machine shop.
Deadheads have got a pretty good man, or used to, he may be gone, but now,
They are good.
Who did you say?
you better have a check.
Busy. Everybody's busy.
We need to pay, I mean, is that, I mean, something we look at for nothing, or do we need?
Well, Tommy will
I
review it.
mean, I'm sure between me and Kathy, we can cover the cost of looking at it to get a cost to do that. But, I still think that the board needs to think about, going ahead with moving forward with a new one for the future.
So we'll entertain a motion, board, to go ahead and receive bids on a new motor roller, and as soon as those come in, they'll be brought back to this board, Lori, and authorize the county manager, Lori, and the health director to proceed to get at least 3 bids.
I don't have any problem asking for a motion to see bids for a new motor roller.
We have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Young, seconded by Commissioner Shields. The motion is that we authorize the county manager and the finance director and the health director to proceed on with getting bids for a new motor roller. We had asked for, if we can get 3 bids, and with a time frame, and in that motion, I'm sure Mr. Young would agree that to see what we can do with the old motor roller too, what kind of money is in that,
So
so.
how much COVID money is laying around? Don't spend all that like we did overnight. You got a pretty good nest egg over there.
Well, I mean, if we could access it, I mean, there's money, it's just they limit what I can use it for. And that's where I may have to ask for permission, to use it for things. I've been asking to use it for anything that I could possibly use it, and then it offsets the county money,
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
This would be the place to use it.
Mr. Manager, you have anything to add?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for all you do, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Does anybody need a break? Good, we'll move on. Demonstration, we have Melanie Tebow with us from the Board of Elections. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good evening. I'll apologize right now for any tongue ties or mistakes. The public speaking is not one of my best qualities. It's just not something I like to do. I don't know if you all know, but the Board of Elections for the last few years has put in for new voting equipment for the capital improvement project. And Derek and I have had several conversations. I've tried to put this off as long as I could to save the county money, because to me, it's kind of like if it's not broke, if it works and we've had no issues, keep what we had and save the county some money. But right now, my board is pretty adamant about getting this going and getting new equipment. Macon County's voting equipment that we have right now is, from what we gather, is over 20 years old. There are 100 counties in North Carolina, and we are 1 in 5 that does not have the upgraded equipment. A lot of counties used some of their CARES Act money to purchase new equipment, but Macon County, the CARES Act money that the counties got was based on the amount of voters that they had. So Macon County didn't get enough money to purchase equipment at that time. We used our money for COVID supplies for our polling precincts. First thing is, though, we can't just go out and buy new equipment and put it in a precinct and use it. I think Mike gave you a handout. I hadn't planned on going through the entire handout. That is for your view. Per the memo from the State Board 2021-01, there are several things that we have to do before we can purchase new equipment. You can't just go out and purchase new equipment and put it in a precinct and use it. There are several things that you have to do before you do that. The first step is to witness a demonstration of the recommended voting system plus at least another certified voting system not currently used in that county. Right now, we currently use ES&S is the company that we use. There's Clear Ballot, there's ES&S, and there's Hart. Clear Ballot is more of the touch screens that you would see. North Carolina is paper ballot. That's what we use, so you're looking at more ES&S and Hart. The second thing you would have to do is then our board would come back to you with a recommendation after that demonstration as to which equipment they would like to purchase. After that, then we have to test the voting equipment in either a precinct, or we would have to conduct a simulated election for the entire county to see. With talking to my board, what we'd like to do is try to get this equipment, all these steps done and completed, and the equipment purchased in 2023 and be simulated and used in a municipal election, which is not one of our busiest years. I don't want to roll out new equipment in a presidential year and have to train over 85 precinct officials and staff to use this equipment in between a primary, a second primary, and a general election. If we could do that, during an off year, then I've got more time because, first of all, the staff has to be trained in this equipment, and then we have to train all of our poll workers to use the equipment. So after that, then you guys would have to make a resolution, to purchase the equipment. Then, the state board has to also approve it too. So we can't just go out and get new equipment. I'm here tonight to tell you and the public that we have started the process. The board, like I said, is very adamant and wants to get this going, and to announce dates and times of the demonstrations of new voting equipment. Tuesday, August the 23rd at 6 p.m., ES&S will be here to show their equipment to the county. This is public, and we want to invite the public and you guys to come out and look at this equipment, see the equipment, see how it works, ask any questions that anyone would have. That was one of my requirements, was one of them refused to answer questions after the voting equipment was demonstrated, so I said no to that one. That's why you see the ES&S and Hart. That's what we were going with to do our demonstrations.
Do you know what voting machine is the most popular in the state?
It's the DS200, and that's what we're looking at.
That's
what we're looking at. They're easy machines. It's still a paper ballot, but it's not a touch screen. No. Most of the counties are using the DS200s.
Does it plug in the internet?
No. None of these have access to the internet. They do not. I think it's the next one that I tried to get them both in the same night so you could come to one meeting and see one, see the other, ask questions of both of them, but they wouldn't agree to that. So you've got ES&S will be here on Tuesday, August 23rd, 6 to 7, and then the next Tuesday, the 30th, Hart will be here to demonstrate their equipment.
Which one did you say was most popular again?
ES&S is who we've been with for the last 20 years that I can see, and ES&S is the company that most use.
What number?
ES&S is from, they have an office in Asheville, so if we have an issue or a problem, they're really quick to come help us or be able to fix it, the issue. Hart is from Texas, and the guy that's coming to do our demonstration is doing a demonstration in St. Louis and then flying here to do our demonstration. So You know, I can't just call and say, hey, one of my voting machines went down, I need a replacement today, and it get here, so.
I think Mr. Rowland and Mr. Horton, who's sitting in the back, county manager for many years, will tell you that it's really important to have a technician you can pick up the phone and call.
Correct.
That can come here.
Correct.
Not get on the phone.
Correct. And not get an answer or.
Absolutely.
Especially, yes, you had 2 or 3 elections going on. I know that the current equipment that we have, I think, was bought with a grant at that time. Several of us that are left that has not updated their equipment has asked about, grants from the state board. We have webinars once a week with the state board, and in their discussions, they're not seeing any grants for new voting equipment. So, like I said, we're just trying to get some of these steps started so we can, get this going. Both demonstrations will be out at the community building because, as you know, Board of Elections office doesn't have enough room to do it publicly, so we thought we'd do it out in the gym.
Now, let me repeat that
For years.
Huh?
We've heard that for years,
Yes,
and it's true.
it is true. But
Is that August
that's another date and
23rd?
time. August 23rd,
that
6
all
o'clock. No, 6 to 7. We're marked down from 6 to 7 p.m. But
Just 1 hour?
no, it could be longer. No, it's going to take longer than that.
We'll have pictures for you, right?
They're going to do their demonstrations. It'll be from 6 till whenever, because depending on the public.
People that's gonna come and look at it. I mean,
Correct. And we've already had phone calls, and there will be questions afterwards. So, no, this demonstration
your
begins at
board
6.
Has started the process.
Yes.
And the lead this board through the steps you gotta jump through real quick.
Okay, the first step, we have to do a demonstration.
Right.
We do the demonstration of one of our choice, and then we have to use someone that we are not currently using. So the demonstration is the first thing.
He's kept these running for 20 years.
Yes. The second one is to come back and make a recommendation to you. And then the third step is either to test the equipment in a precinct or do a simulated election for the public. And go through step 1 to step 10, run through a whole mock election for the county.
Did they give you any clue how long it would take after all those steps have been done to get the machines?
To get the machines, it wouldn't take a couple of months to get the machines, if even that. If we go with our current company, we could have the equipment in a couple of
So
weeks.
your goal is to have it ready for the municipal election?
I would love to have this completed and done so we can use it in the municipal election. It makes sense. That gives me a longer time to train. Ourselves have to be trained first. Board has to be trained.
Be in November of 23, right?
Yes, sir. And then that way, I'm not rolling out brand-new equipment in presidential 24 election, that you're going to have a primary, a second primary, and a general
How
election.
many machines you talking?
Well, I put in, as you can see in the back, our quote was for 24 machines. I think before in our capital improvement project, I put 21 or 22.
How many you got now?
Right now, I have 22, and 2 of them went down in this election. And the day before the election, we were trying to get someone here to fix those equipment. So for these quotes, I put in for 24 machines. You have 15 precincts in Macon County, plus 5 administrative precincts. Then that gives me 4 more extra machines in case something happens.
So when do you anticipate coming back before this board?
Well, it would be after the demonstration, then we would have a board meeting next month. We meet the first Monday of
And
the
you had
month.
to have a recommendation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, you said the most popular machine was a certain number,
A DS200.
DH200
DS200.
and DS200.
And then the
That machine.
ES&S. ES&S carries that.
ESS.
ES&S.
It's on the first page, Paul, where it says North Carolina State Board of Elections. It don't
Yeah, it's
have
down
a-
there at the bottom.
Second page.
And
number.
the ADA compliant machine that we're required by law to have is that express vote ballot marking device would be the one that we would probably choose. You're required by law to have an ADA marking machine. It's kind of like a $10,000 pencil for those that need it. Reads Braille, you can put the ballot inside, use headphones, it reads the ballot out to you. Helps you mark your ballot.
Mr. Manager, will this also, regardless of the recommendation of the election board, will it have to go out to bid?
Are these on, now these election machines, are they treated differently, Lori? Are they on state contract?
There
I
will be
don't
an
know.
election equipment. If equipment over $90,000 under general statutes is required to be bid formally. Now, how that coincides with all the rules you have to follow,
We'll have to look
that's
into
something
that.
The
we'll have to
state board
explore.
can answer that question.
They probably could. I could find that out.
You know, the state board, maybe they have contracts with them, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, because if it's on a state contract or purchasing cooperative, there's exception to the bid.
Well, I do know there's only 3 companies that are licensed, they have to be licensed and bonded to use these machines, and those are the 3 that I gave you that
So you're
the
going
state
to be looking
uses.
in the neighborhood of 240, 250,000?
About 250,000, yes,
You
to
mentioned
replace
that you-
all.
Sorry, you mentioned you wanted to try to have these ready to go November 2023 municipal election. So when would you have to place the order for them for that to happen?
Well, in speaking with one of the companies, like I said, 2 months, I could place the,
So next budget year, that's where
yes,
I'm getting at.
yes, yes,
There's no money, we've slotted this in fiscal '24 CIP purposes.
correct. And that's what
So
we've
if we
done.
had to order before July 1, 2023, that would require a budget appropriation, so that's why I'm asking.
Correct.
But you've got your demonstrations already set.
Yes,
They're coming.
yes.
So that's the next step.
Yes, yes.
Time to do it.
And I
Any
hope
questions?
everyone comes out.
Any
see if
questions
we
for
could
Ms.
Ask questions.
Melanie?
Hmm?
Any
Excuse me?
questions?
I hope you all can come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. We appreciate it. Before we get into the values, standards, and rules from Ms. Braswell, we'll take a break. We'll reconvene at 22. That's about 6-7 minutes. We'll take a short break, 6-7 minutes, and we'll be back at 22. We'll reconvene.
Big noise.
Next on the agenda is our tax administrator, Abby Baswell. Abby, if you'll come forward, I think you have a booklet for us.
I do. Thank you, Commissioners. I am here tonight to present to you the 2023 Schedule of Value Standards and Rules and the 2023 Schedule of Present Use Value Standards and Rules for the 2023 reappraisal. I'm going to give you these books now. I did send them electronically so that you all could look at them and review them. Before we go into the schedule that needs to be approved, in order to approve these, I would like to give you a little snapshot of what's going on right now in the reappraisal. I'd also like to recognize Kevin Ford, who is our reappraisal consultant manager, who has been with us. This is his 7th reappraisal for Macon County, and he did compile that schedule of values. Right now, the sales by township, this is a little different than what I presented before. I did do each township. I have the 2021 sales, and now I have the 2022 sales as of August 1st. The number of parcels sold for each township, I have the highest sale, the lowest sale, and then for 22, I have the average and the mean. And we have a total qualified. A qualified sale is a sale that we can use to value property, as opposed to an unqualified sale that we have to disqualify due to different reasons.
Abby, let me interrupt. Is 22 through June?
It's through July.
Through July.
It's through July. Because by the appraisal rules, we have to use the most current sales to value the property.
What's the average on 21?
The average sales,
See how the average on 22 there?
okay, I did not do it for 21. I just did it for the 22 year. I can get that to you. I mean, I did not. So those are the averages of the mean. It has changed a little bit from what you can see. The sales, we are halfway through the year, so we have 815 qualified sales now. Last year, for the total year, it was 1853. We're shy of 200 sales if we continue on the same course that we're on as far as the sales go. We're going to be almost at what we were last year. Now, I did totals by township, the number of taxable parcels. There's your 2019 taxable value for each township, and then your 23 taxable value based on the schedule of values that I just presented to you. I did the increase and the change.
Whoa.
Yeah. We've grown over 1,000 parcels with a lot more growth that we see to come for, say, tiny home parks on each side of the county. So we are always looking at sales. We will look at them. We look at them daily. But based on the sales right now, what we've done, and this is the snapshot at this point, based on the schedule of values that I just gave you.
So you're looking at 4 billion,
Yes,
59 million,
yes,
784,000,
yes, sir.
278, an increase of 50.94%.
Overall, I mean, as an
Overall,
average.
that's average.
That's averages. I've given you each township and their average.
That's at our current 40 mils, this rate?
No, the rate will change for this.
This is
And we-
reflecting the new rate?
This is not what we're going to collect. This is the value that we're going to get
Okay, I got you, sorry.
per.
The base.
I see
The
where you're at.
base that we're going to get.
Okay.
And then at a later date, we'll do a revenue neutral, and then you can decide what to do with the tax, the millage rate.
This is only property tax.
This is the values that you will decide the millage rate to get the tax base value, income.
Please don't say revenue.
I was trying to avoid the word.
Taxes.
Yes. But this is just, at this point in time, as you can see, well, you can't see from this one, from our last one, I gave you this in February, it was 11,100 million. We've increased that much.
Kevin,
Yes, sir.
have you ever seen an increase like this as long as you've been here?
I've seen, yeah, it's been a long time. Back in the 90s, it was like this. But
Then
you
why?
gotta remember, in 08, well, 15 what happened, we lost $2 billion.
No way, we had to take money in and prop it up.
No.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right, so that's our snapshot for right now. I will give you another one closer to January 1st. But for tonight, I need to ask, or this is the schedule that I proposed. Tonight, I'm presenting you with the schedule of values, standards, and rules for each, the regular and the present use values, so that they can be adopted separately. And then a copy of them will be in the tax office, available for public inspection at any time. They can come in and ask for it. On September 13th, I'm suggesting that we have a public hearing at your next board meeting, that anybody can speak on it. And then on October 11th, that's the Board of Commissioner meeting for you to approve the schedule of values, each of them separately.
So let me ask a quick question. Maybe Kevin can help me answer this. This is my first time I've really ever saw an increase that substantial. But talking about 2008 and how things decreased, they obviously don't decrease that fast, right? You have to have a reevaluation, and then they decrease, and it reflects over time, right? It's not going to drop off in 1 year's time.
Well, what happened in 08 was okay, then when we started moving towards doing the revaluation for 12, we actually put it off and pushed it till later. And we did for 07, so then we didn't do it again until 15.
So the property value essentially decreases because of volume? People just, the supply, demand, how do the values decrease?
When 07 came, 07 to 11, property values went down constantly. And then it's rebounded. I can tell you, we were finishing the revaluation in Jackson County for 20 years ago, mixed up, 2019. And it was 2021, sorry. So in July of 2020, right after COVID hit, it was like somebody flipped a switch on it. We saw it take it off, and we tried to chase it, and we could keep up with the increases over there. So they're going to have this thing happen if things don't flatten out. But I've seen, it's been 2% and 4% a month increases pretty consistently over the past this year so far. The amount of sales are dropping off, but the number. We're seeing stuff sell for $220 a square foot for houses that, that's what we're seeing, so. And more.
So Abby, what you're asking for tonight is just a consensus from this board to approve your schedule?
To approve my schedule, because by statute, it has to be done days apart. Things have to be done at certain times. And in between this, so after tonight, once I've given it to you, then we have to, the board, we have a notice that goes out in the paper to announce to everybody that this has been given to the board, that they are in the tax office, they can come in and look at them, and then that there is a public hearing going to take place on the 13th. so that they will know that they can come to that and ask their questions.
So we have two documents here that will be to the public. You have a proposed, right?
Yes.
And you have current.
No, that one is the present use value. So in order to present use values for the agriculture, horticulture, forestry,
Okay.
and they normally are approved separately as two separate schedules. So these are the proposed. After we have the public meeting, if there's anything that anyone has concerns with, we can discuss that. At that time, we can change the schedule based on what we find. And then, after we do that, then we come back to you and ask you to approve it. It has to be approved before January 1st of 2023. So that leaves us with November and December if at the October 11th date, you find something that you want to review or you think we need to change, and then we have to look at that.
And
And
the
then we
public can view this.
At the
Is it going to be
tax-
online?
I can put it online, yes. It'll be on our webpage at makeitnc.org tax.
Did we get that so we can let the public know? Thank you. Okay, board, you see, I don't know, do we need a motion on that or just a consensus of the board to approve the schedule?
They just accept it, because it has to be viewed now. It can't be accepted.
No, I mean, to approve the schedule.
You can't approve it now. You can't approve it till October 11th.
He's
The
my
schedule,
schedule,
what's that?
like
Oh,
the
okay,
dates.
gotcha.
Yeah, we're just going to
Just
approve
making sure
this.
we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think we can do that by consensus. That we, does any, first of all, you have any questions for Abby? Second of all, do we have a consensus that we all agree that the schedule that Abby's presented is realistic and that we can work to that? Does anybody have any objection to that? So with that, we'll, by the consensus of this board, Abby, we will, the proposed schedule of value standards and rules for North Carolina Virginia Statute 105-317 is, your schedule is approved by consensus of this board. So
Thank you, everyone. I
we'll see
appreciate
you
that.
again on September 13th for the public hearing.
Yes, you will.
And that, do we all think that gives the public enough time to really understand this is so important?
Well, and I have, so by statute, we only have to advertise one time that there's going to be a public hearing. Those dates are the 24th and the 25th. We do one time in the Highlands, one time in Franklin. If you would like, I can do another time in Highlands and another time in Franklin. I can do two publishings if that is something you'd like me to do.
Now, who do you have in your office that when they call, Abby, that will answer the questions that the public might have? They just call the regular number and,
They can call any of our numbers.
that'll be on and that number will be published on the web too. just like-
Yes, yes, it will. And we usually put public notices either under the public notice on the website or on or both. So if somebody goes to the public notice part of the website, that will post that as there as well. If they have questions, they can call me or my office.
Okay, Abby.
Okay?
I think we'd be amiss if we didn't recognize Kevin Ford and the years and I don't know how much, back when I was on the Board of Equalization and Review, which is many moons ago, Kevin,
Long time ago.
the money that Kevin Ford and his team have saved this county, I'd hate to put a number on it, Kevin, but I know what other counties have spent and had to go back and have it redone. And it's a lot of money. So Kevin, we appreciate you. And we appreciate your team and what they do. Okay, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Rick Shields is going to talk to us about the 1/4 cent sales tax, and it's not 25 cents, right, Mr. Shields?
No. I'm going to refer that to county manager. I just want to say a couple of things. Want to say, I saw Dr. Wildy here, wanted to say to him, appreciate him coming, giving his time. We thought he'd retired, but I think he's still working. Also, Callie Roper, we have a facilities review committee for the school system. Josh and I are the liaison from the board here for that facilities review committee. And when we moved this facilities review committee into a Franklin High School project, we became the facilities review committee for Franklin High School project there. And I guess I'm surprised, Dylan, that we hadn't had anybody talk about renovation. That being an option. We've gone through that. But Kelly is our representative, school FHS representative for sitting on this facilities review committee for Franklin High School. She's an upcoming senior. A few weeks ago, she got back from governor's school, and we put her on the spot on July the 26th. But Kelly, if you'd introduce your group there. She's the chairperson of the Interact Club at Franklin High School.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Callie Roper. Like you said, I've been on that Franklin High School committee. And in addition to that, I am the president of the FHS Interact Club this year. This is my vice president, Nathan McAllister. This is my advisor, Ms. Shields. And I'm just really happy that we're moving forward and stuff like that. This is our principal, Mickey Noe. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
And I believe that's his first time we've been able to see you in this setting here. Mr. Noe, you got something, we're talking about your school all the time, but.
Sure, definitely. I just wanted to thank everyone for the invitation to come here tonight. Franklin High School is a special place to be, that's for sure. I've been there for a year, and to sit here in this room and see Mr. Shields, who of course in our world is a legend at Franklin High School, he is there all the time. It's hard to beat a man who cares about our kids, our community, our teachers, our staff like he does. Dr. Baldwin here in front of us, our superintendent, he's on campus all the time eating lunch with the kids. And after completing my first year at Franklin High School, I can say without any reservations that it's a blessed place to be. Our faculty and staff is second to none. The tradition at Franklin High School is amazing. I know this gentleman spoke a little bit about maybe moving Franklin High School to other places throughout this county. Let me tell you, Franklin High School cannot be in any other place. It's got to be on that spot. That place, I get visitors coming in the summer who are doing their 50-year school reunions. They want to tour around campus. They want to look around. They want Franklin High School to be in that spot. The nostalgia that it goes along at Franklin High School is just absolutely amazing. It's tradition for it to be in that spot. So I'm a huge proponent for moving forward with building a new school. I really appreciate everyone's support with our school board, our county commissioners, and it is time. I know I've heard people in the community talk about the possibility of trying to revitalize it or rebuild it, reconstruct it. The school is worn out. It definitely needs to be redone. It's a bear to supervise because of all the separate buildings, the asbestos. There's a whole lot of issues that, a lot of those issues you can't see with the human eye, but it's definitely time. The space is great. The folks are there. It's time to move on with that project. And I feel blessed to be a part of it. So thank you for having me. There's not another place, not a high school in the world I'd rather be than Franklin High School. So I appreciate the opportunity to be the leader there, and I appreciate your help in moving forward with this project.
Thank you, Principal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noe. Another thing on the Dylan situation there, approximately March 3rd and 21, Dylan, we probably concluded with the site visits from my information I have here. Having been the principal there for 21 years, I began to factor in these type things. 300 student cars, 80 faculty and staff cars, buses, athletic events, parent drop-off and pick-up and deliveries. If you factor that in to a site, it can be, you can get rid of it out real quick because of that, the logistics part of it. And the canvas that we have now, I know, I don't know how many cars, student cars you have there now. We used to have 300. Are you close to that?
We're 300 plus. Our student lot is full, but thank goodness the church next door allows us to park 50 to 75 cars there as well.
So you can find the piece of property, we found the piece of property, but you couldn't put all that in there. And a high school wants to be a good neighbor. And so that's where that, through the Facilities Review Committee, when Mr. Rowland here sought the RFQs for architect service at Franklin High School and LS3P, this gentleman right over here, Mr. Boney, was selected. Josh and all of us, we spent a number of hours working with Mr. Boney. And we concluded, if anybody here wants to see the renovation plan, I have it. I will be glad to sit down with you, like we've also already done with some people, sit down with you and go over the renovation plan and let you make your own judgment if you will renovate or go to new school, build us a new school. But I'll Dr. Baldwin, we worked out at his place. We can do it again, right, Dr. Baldwin? If you have any questions about renovation versus the new school. And you make the decision what's there. Because when you look at the situation we're in now, if you look at, when we look at a school side or new school, you've got to talk about your academics. You've got to talk about your athletics. You talk about, listen, ADA, Franklin High School gets a 0 on that because those physically handicapped students cannot manage on Franklin High School campus. But they should be provided the same opportunity for an education as anyone else. A one-legged man and a two-legged race is not equal. And so I just want you to think about those things. If you have questions about, well, why did they just leave renovation out? I'll sit down and talk to you. I've got the book. I'll walk you through it. And you're intelligent people. You can make that decision yourself. And when we met on the 26th, Commissioner Board of Education members voted unanimously to authorize Mr. Rowland, Macon County Manager, to negotiate a contract with LS3P for the final design of the new building. And we're moving on with that. We'll probably be doing some of that tonight. But when you factor in what a campus has to encompass beyond people, it can be mind-boggling. And be glad to talk to you. I don't think I can reveal sites, those type things, but I will definitely can reveal to you some of the complications that you run into when you're looking at sites. If you found one down in Callaway, Iowa, 50 acres, where's your infrastructure at? You know, 2-lane road. Every morning you're putting on all the buses and all the students down the roads. So it gets ruled out real quick. And like Mr. Noel was saying, it is the central location. It's the community's blood right there. And to move on, I believe in the information I've got, we're probably looking at another public meeting in October. And we'll have a schematic drawing of the new building and athletic field, stadium, and those type of things. And I hope you can come. So save those. I believe it said October mid or late.
That's correct.
And,
we haven't set a date yet, but
right.
That's what the committee talked about, and we'd like for them to be able to set that date. I don't want to set it tonight.
Dylan, be glad to sit down with you and your friends or anything like that. We talk about it. I want to thank Mr. Rowland for letting me have that few minutes, and he's the quarter cent man.
Yeah, as we've discussed tonight, just very briefly, a big topic surrounding the construction of a new Franklin High School is how we're going to fund it. 100 million plus, that's obviously a very hefty price tag, and I think this board has shown they're aware of that through the steps they've taken as we look at how we're going to how we could potentially finance this project. One of the things we've done, we submitted application to the North Carolina Public School Capital Fund in the amount of $50 million. We were not awarded funding in that first round, but the second round is forthcoming. I think the applications are due in September for that. We plan on submitting another application and having another shot at that funding source. Of course, $50 million, if awarded, 30 million, whatever it may be, we're going to ask for 50, which is the maximum amount, would make a very substantial dent in that project in the amount that we have to finance. In addition to that, another action that the board has taken is this board unanimously approved placing on the November 8th ballot the quarter-cent local option sales tax. Basically, there's, as we all know, the primary sources of revenue into this county. When you look at our revenue sources, about 53% of that comes from ad valorem tax revenue. That's the property taxes. That's all related to what we've discussed with Ms. Braswell. The remaining 16% of that, or the additional 16% of our revenue, comes from sales tax. And we've seen sales tax continue, as Kevin mentioned, with the pandemic. Not only did property values begin going up, our sales tax values did exactly the opposite of what Macon County and counties all across the state were anticipating in the face of that pandemic. So there is one option that as the sales tax continues to increase, it would be a quarter cent would be added on to the sales tax that someone pays when they're purchasing goods, when they're doing business in Macon County. This does not apply to things like your groceries, your gasoline purchases, and again, it's a quarter cent. Right now, we're at 6.75. This would take it to 7%. We've heard somebody mention here tonight that sometimes you're already paying 7%. That is the case on purchases $3 or less. You're already getting rounded up to 7%. That 0.25% between the 6.75 and 7 goes to Raleigh, and it's then redistributed across all counties across the state. Passage of the quarter cent sales tax would ensure that 0.25% comes directly back to Macon County. In the resolution passed by the Board of Commissioners, that resolution cited that it could go towards funding capital improvements in the Macon County school system. And of course, our eye was on this project in doing that, and these funds can be used for that if passed. The brochures that you see in the back, you will see these floating around. That is because before a voter goes to the ballot and makes a decision on this, we want them to be armed with all the information possible. And this was just a very quick way to summarize that information. This does not advocate for or against passage of the quarter cent sales tax. It is to arm the citizens of Macon County with the information they need to make an educated decision in the ballot box on whether they want that sales tax in place or not. It is important to note many counties in North Carolina have pursued this option and have used funds generated from the additional quarter cent sales tax to go toward funding things like schools, transportation, etc. And within our region alone, the 7-county western region, all 6 counties that border us have implemented the quarter cent sales tax. Macon County would be looking to do the same thing if this resolution were to pass. So what that means is if you get a candy bar or if you get a $5 purchase in Jackson County, then they're getting 1 cent back towards funding their needs, whatever that sales tax goes towards. Whereas in Macon County, that 1 cent goes to North Carolina, goes down to Raleigh, and it gets redistributed back. This pamphlet, again, it's very short, very informational. It shows the question as it will appear on the November 8th ballot. It also has the price impact of the quarter cent local option sales tax on the purchase price amounts. For instance, If enacted on a $100 purchase, currently, you're paying $106.75. If this sales tax were passed, you would pay $107 on a $100 purchase. Again, that's not $100 worth of gas, and that's not $100 worth of groceries. So this will be on the November 8th ballot. We'd like you to be armed with all the information possible, and the pamphlets are in the back of the Commissioners' boardroom.
And I'll just add to that, what you will not see on the ballot is that it says that this is earmarked for school construction. That's against the North Carolina state statute.
Right.
You cannot list the purpose. This board can, at budget time, earmark that money. This board cannot vote to support or non-support of the 1/4% sales tax. Individually, we can speak to it, but not as a board. So we just want to make sure everybody understands that. And before we move on, I'll talk a little bit about today. It was called the Rebounding Stronger Summit in Cherokee. The governor was there, a lot of folks were there. The president of the Rural Center was there, and talked a lot about the money that's available, the grants that are available, and how, of course, I spoke on how we get penalized for being pretty good stewards of the tax dollars. And we do get penalized. We talked about broadband, and the governor talked about, what I really wanted to say was that there is a lot of different pots of money out there. And what we've got to do is be prepared as a county and as a region. If you remember, if you look how these grants are put out, it's to those counties who are prepared, who've got their act together, knows how to put their name on first. That's who's usually successful. The 7 far west counties have not been too successful. So this was sponsored today to the Southwest Commission, the Land of Sky, and the Eastern Band. So we're hopeful that as we move forward, we are looking at grant writers that will, of all these grants that are available, that, to make sure that we're aware of them, whether it be for a school. And of course, my argument is, and this board's argument always been, regardless of your zip code, we should have the same opportunities as the rest of the state. We get penalized because of where we live, because of our topography. That's just a fact. And so we had an interesting meeting. It was all about rural counties. Patrick Woody is from the Rural Center. And we asked questions about, especially about broadband, that some people on this board, Mr. Shields and others, have worked so hard on, and that we don't want people just coming in and doing the low-hanging fruit. We want them to, everybody can go down the neighborhood where there's houses on each side of the road. So it was, you'll be hearing a lot more about today, and the governor's comments, and the Dogwood Trust, and how they can be very valuable to us. We are facing a housing crisis in Macon County, as we all know. There's nothing to rent. There's a new kind of homeless. Those homeless are working people that wherever they were renting, that house had been sold. In North Carolina, you can give as little as 16-day notice to evacuate. And when they do, there's nowhere to rent. So those are some of the things that we discussed today, and what's affecting our county. And so we'll be hearing more about that. So with that, Mr. Shields, what else you got?
Before we move along, one more important item of note, you will find it in the brochure. At our current sales tax receipts, passage of the 1/4% local option sales tax would equate to approximately $2 million in additional revenue annually.
That's based on?
That's based on what we're seeing today.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Shields on the 1/4% sales tax?
Not involving anything, I forgot to mention, with our Facilities Review Committee, Franklin High School, Mr. Rowland, Mr. Baldwin, they're co-chairs, and they lead us well, we appreciate it, and anything you need to add to that?
No, sir, I think that was pretty well covered.
We are co-chairs, but all the complaints go to Dr. Baldwin.
Okay, we're going to move on, if there are no questions. The next thing on the agenda is a resolution of amendment to agreement between Macon County and LS3P Associates Limited. If you remember our July 26th meeting, this board agreed to bring this resolution up for a vote at this meeting. So we have two resolutions in front of you, board. The first one being, I guess, Mr. Manager, do you want to do the?
What we have here, and I'll certainly defer to the attorney, following the July 26th joint meeting with the Macon County Board of Education, the attorney and myself were instructed to enter into contract negotiations that were representative of what we discussed at that meeting, and that was to allow the architect to move forward with the schematic design of the Franklin High School main building. We have done that via an addendum to our current contract with the architect in the amount of $476,161. Again, this board had discussed this. This was planned. We had approximately $800,000 in the fiscal year 23 budget that was approved by this board to continue our planning and design efforts at the Franklin High School project. This number, of course, lies well within that budgeted amount. So with that being said, I will turn it over to the attorney for the instructions on the resolution and the second addendum to the agreement.
All right, so the resolution is just, was passed wherein, again, Manager Rowland was instructed to negotiate that third phase. And so what we originally started off with was 3 phases of the contract. If it proceeds all the way to construction, there will be substantially more phases. The first 3 phases were phase 1 was the schematic design for the stadium. Second one was do the cost analysis of renovate versus build a new and raise the old. And so that phase 2 is now completed. That phase 3, which is the final phase of this original contract, was left open for the commissioners to decide whether or not, after y'all voted on you did the cost analysis, whether you wanted to proceed with phase 3, which is the schematic design for the high school building structure. And based upon that vote at on the July 26th meeting, that was what was decided by both the school board and the commissioners. So now it's up we passed that resolution then today for proceeding with phase 3. We've got the resolution attached in your packet, and then we've also got the second addendum, which is the written authorization to proceed with the third and final phase of this initial contract. If after you do this, you decide you want to stop, you still can. If you want to proceed on, then we'll have a new contract with LS3P at that point.
So what we'll do, board, is there's no reason to read, I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'll start at the very bottom. It says, whereas following the public meeting on July 26, 2022, upon motion by the board member Arnold and seconded by board member Evans, the school board voted unanimously to proceed with phase 3, New Franklin High School, consisting of the schematic design phase of the agreement. And whereas LS3P and the county have agreed upon a price not to exceed $476,161 for phase 3. The New Franklin High School, the schematic design phase consisting of 3.21 through 3.2.7 of the agreement. Now therefore, in consideration and compliance with the applicable laws, the sufficiency of which is to hereby acknowledge that parties of the above referenced agreement hereby mutually enter into this second amendment to owner-architect agreement, which is fully incorporated into and made part of the agreement. To the extent that the terms and conditions contained with this addendum conflict with any other terms or conditions contained within the agreement, the terms and conditions contained within this amendment shall prevail. The parties agree as follows. LS3P is authorized to proceed with phase 3, the New Franklin High School, consisting of the schematic design phase of the owner-architect agreement for the Franklin High School project, at a price not to exceed $476,161, which amount will be paid by the county. So that's what we're talking about tonight. This is what, the money's already been set aside and budgeted, correct, County Manager?
Yes.
So at this time, we will,
I think we need to do the resolution first and the addendum second.
okay, so we'll ask for a motion for the resolution first, and then we'll ask for a motion for the addendum. So now we'll entertain a motion for the resolution. Only thing I've got is resolution for the second addendum to the agreement between Macon County and LS3 Associates, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we'll ask for a motion for that, and then we'll move on.
So move. Make a motion.
The motion been made, do we have a second? Second. The motion been made and seconded, we approve the resolution for the second addendum to the agreement between Macon County and LS3P Associates Limited. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now we will vote on the addendum. The second addendum to the owner-architect agreement. This is authorizing architects to move forward, and the county manager to sign along with our county attorney for the third phase, not to exceed $476,161. We'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved, Chairman Bill.
Motion been made and second. We approve the second addendum to the owner-architect agreement, which has been read and put into the public record. Any further discussion?
This is not necessarily relevant to this, but I'd like to speak to the architect at some point during the school discussion. We can do it right now, or we can.
Well, let's go ahead and approve this, and we can ask him whatever we need to. If that's, is it concerning the design?
Design of the athletic facility. I just wanted an update for the
Okay,
we'll public of the athletic facilities in phase one.
Do you want that now?
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
we've already got a motion on the floor. Let's finish the motion, and then
Okay.
we can certainly have that discussion, Commissioner Young. Okay? So the motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. So, Mr. Architect, if you want to come forth, and we'll have that at our September meeting.
Yes, sir. Mr. Young.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Young, if I understand your question, it's what is kind of the status of the athletic
Yes, sir.
design. And so what the contract we're adding the building onto is the design for the stadium and the grading of that upper field. And so we have a design meeting this week, in our Asheville office, where a group of our folks will get together and be fleshing out more of that design, because we're actually moving that a step further to design development. That's what our original contract is for. And so that gets more of the engineering. It will talk about the water issues that we have. It'll talk about the grading, and it becomes, we get our engineers involved in that. And so that's what we're trying to get completed by that October, that late October meeting that we're talking about having. In the meantime, along with that, another group is working on the building, the new building, because the building and that athletic thing come together and have to be, floor heights and all of that stuff has to come together. And so we're working on it simultaneously, but it's really two separate projects.
And if the best case scenario, if everything goes smooth, when do you think you'd have something that we could look at?
Well, we're trying to get some preliminary information together between now and the end of September for one of our meetings. And we'll show you progress stuff. None of it will be finished. And then the schematic design we're trying to get through by the end of October. I think there were certain dates that we picked, and that design development would dovetail with that. So we're very busy right now, trying to get that done in a month and a half.
So our next meeting is in October, October the 11th, and so you probably won't have that meeting before we meet in October, will you?
No, but we also want to have that, I think we've set a,
Public meeting.
yeah, we'd have a public meeting after that. But I want to show it to I'd like to, if it's okay with y'all, I want to show it to the committee so we get their input into what we're doing, then come back to y'all, and at some point, we need to show it to the school board also. So we've got a bunch of meetings we've got to hit within that, plus just getting the work done. So, but that's what we're shooting for, Josh.
Any further questions?
Oh, yeah, I had been in meetings, some of these guys, I think, meet every day on the school project, and
I do.
they're wearing you out. But when we started all this, we've heard for years about the athletic field, and my question was, what is our current drainage situation, basic question, and we cambered it, I think. At some point, when it's best for you or your team, could we have a public explanation, 2 minutes, 3 minutes on that, just that simple thing? Because that's going to dictate the future of the athletic, you got to fix the drainage.
Keeping the water out of the building and keeping the water off of that field and having it flow properly are first and foremost in our minds. We have special civil engineers that are looking at exactly that issue and exactly that problem right now. And that's part of the meeting in our Asheville office on, I think it's Thursday, is they're going through that sort of analysis right now. And as you can imagine, it's a very complex problem.
But now, you did camera it, right? I got an email, didn't we run a sewer camera up the current?
A camera. I'm sorry, I'm not just saying camber. I'm sorry. A camera, yes. We had someone do that, but frankly, what we will do is we will put in, probably, if I had to guess, we will put in a new line, because I don't think the existing line is big enough. And I think that's part of the problem, and no matter what we do to it with the camera or whatever, I think it's going to be, but anyway, I don't want to jump the gun on what I'm telling you, because we need really time to do that, to really do the analysis. And that's what we're taking the time right now to do, because we want to get it right.
This school building proposal that you've got,
Yes, sir?
have you built that before?
No. No, it's totally unique to Macon County, because it is unique to this site. And to his point, you know, that this building fits perfectly on that site, and we designed it to do that.
Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to confuse you.
No, I just,
don't talk architect. I talk
I know, I'm with you.
video, I should have said, the video.
It's okay. I just.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
We look forward to seeing something on paper.
Great, thank you,
Thanks for all
sir.
your hard work.
Thank you, Paul. Next time, maybe we'll put you first.
The next item, gentlemen, is the consent agenda. Are there any items anybody would like to pull and discuss off the consent agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Young, seconded by Commissioner Shields, that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Don't think we have any appointments? Or they have a need for a closed session, Mr. Attorney?
No.
Mr. Manager?
Not now.
No. Commissioners, anybody need a closed session for any reason?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
With this meeting, this is an adjournment. The 26th was a continuation. This is an adjournment until our meeting in September. So thank you all for coming.
You have any questions?